Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is our practice edition where we take improvements we made through the week and think about them in terms of lean and TPS and theory of constraints and different ideas around efficiency and continuous improvement. I'm Uriel Eisen.
I'm Devin Bedoni.
You got a quote?
People do not decide their future. People decide their habits, and their habits decide their future.
Love it.
I do. Although, I would say giving people the credit for deciding their habits is maybe a bit of a stretch for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Most people choose not to decide their habits.
Right, and then just complain about their future.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I think I really like this. I feel like I came to this years ago, which is like the things you make major progress on are the things you do every day.
Yeah.
Whether that's like biking, if you bike a little bit every day, you really get in shape relative to like do a big bike ride once a week or something.
Yeah.
It's just so substantial, and like really big projects. I feel like if you just work on them every day, or books, like you read, like I'm trying to get back into this because whatever, it got disrupted. But like just deciding to read at least one sentence every night. Super low bar.
Yeah, that is.
And you do go through books because typically you don't just read one sentence. But sometimes every now and then you just read a sentence and you're like, oh, check that box. It's done. Actually, now that I say that, here's the I started flossing religiously from one great piece of advice from my mom. She's like, are you flossing every day? I was like, no, I'm not. She said, you floss every day. And when you think to yourself, I'm too tired, you floss anyway. And I have not missed a day since. I did add one caveat to that, which is when I'm traveling, because sometimes I forget floss.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't have to be like I'm breaking the system, you know?
Right.
Because then you're like, all right, well,
it's broken. Don't have to continue now.
So maybe that's my new thing. If you think you're too tired, you read a sentence anyway. I'll report back. Let's see how that goes. I'm going to try to do it.
Nice.
But yes, habits are useful and they build a future.
Yeah. And obviously everyone can see where this is going.
Yes. So to jump right in, my big one, which I think I mentioned last week, I'm trying to get better at 3S. 3Sing. I shouldn't say that. Doesn't matter what you call it. I want the shop to be cleaner.
Yeah.
More organized. And like back to this quote, I think it just needs to be a thing that happens with regularity, whether that's daily or weekly. I think daily's better.
It is. We are trying to do it like 3 times a week or something. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think it just has to be every day.
Right. It's like we get in and we clean.
Yeah.
And if you are already back to square one because of a mix of like cleaning prior and systemizing and making like places for everything, and so the next day you come in and there's no mess to clean up, go look at your computer.
Miraculous, but it's not going to happen.
But there's always more stuff to standardize and anyway, so I've been doing some, and it's kind of amazing if you set aside like time that is going to be cleaning. Yeah, there's just so much stuff that just ends up living somewhere and then becomes sort of habitual, like it just is there.
It's
and
part of the furniture.
Yeah, right. You don't then look at it and go like, why is that there? Is there a plan for it to be not there?
So are you doing it is this just you, or are you doing it the crew together?
Right now I've just been doing it because I'm trying to see how that is, and I like it. I think I kind of want to make it like the first 30 minutes of our day. I think we've been doing a ridiculous number of improvements all the time because I just really like doing that.
Because it's actually why you started a business.
Yeah, it's like it's really fun. It's fun to think about. It's fun to implement.
Yeah.
It's all fun. And so, but like to a ridiculous degree, like I've been saying, like optimizing things that really don't need to be optimized. I just enjoy it.
Interesting.
And then don't want to tackle some of the other ones, like my desktop on my computer, my desktop on my desk.
Right.
Like they're messy and there's no reason they should be. And I do waste time looking for things and something falls off the side or, there's just stuff. So
Yeah.
and it's weirdly meditative. Like it doesn't take a lot of thinking. So I feel like it's also an opportunity to kind of think about what you're going to do that day.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
yeah, I've fallen into this habit that I don't think is good. But in the
what does that say about your future?
No. Sick burn. Where over the past several months, we've been very busy. There's like spreading the workload more. And like me, as someone who always did kind of everything in the business, having to learn how to be like, doing task A is not my purview anymore. I need to stay focused on task B, because if task B doesn't happen, everything else, task A, can't happen.
100%.
But I think I've gone a little bit far to that sometimes, where it's like, yes, I need to be doing task A, but also I need to keep my head in the business, and it builds camaraderie to all be keeping the place clean together.
Yeah.
And I think it can be, and it is meditative and kind of like brings you into the space. And I think it can be very easy to just get ultra focused on your little silo. And it's helpful to break back out of that.
I will say, not to just like copy for copying's sake, but all the very successful, as far as I've seen, all the very successful implementations of the Toyota production system and Lean, like the CEO will be like scrubbing the floor. And I think it's it's a little bit, dogmatic's not really the word. It's a little bit like proving a point. But I think that point is a very worthwhile point to prove.
Yeah.
Which is like, we are all responsible for maintaining a clean shop, and we are all willing to like get our hands dirty and get into the details. And I don't know. Yeah. I've been having the same struggle because I've been really trying to like not get distracted from hard things that I'm kind of putting off, like developing a product.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is hard, especially when you like get to the end of the day and you're like, well, I didn't get through this other thing that I needed to do. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems to be a constant theme here on this podcast.
Which is what? Struggle?
Struggle, not having enough time to do all the different things. Like having to choose between various aspects of the business that are all very important. Yeah,
now that is a good problem to have.
Yes.
Right? The other option is you don't have as much work as time, which is really not either of our problems. that's much the opposite. There's like so much opportunity, it's hard to know what to chase.
You make a solid point.
But it still is difficult. I don't see that changing at all. But maybe, going back to last episode, maybe there's something to be said for like evaluating. So here's something I was thinking about actually. Are we still in our practice edition? Is you mentioned Toyota Kata. They talked about a system for how Kanbans get sequenced. No matter when they got triggered, they get sequenced in like A, B, B, C or something like that. Or the example they give was out of alphabetical order to make a point. I was wondering, what do you think about, so we have concurrent tasks that theoretically flow but have too few people to man every station, so instead they don't flow, you pass them to the next one, and then at some point someone comes along and does that step, which you could say is not true flow. Fair. You could also say though that is not unique to us, because if you have one asset that is needed for multiple tasks, or one piece of equipment, person, whatever, a bottleneck for a local, or not necessarily a global bottleneck, but like if there's one, like the sequencing that Toyota's doing suggests to me that there is one piece of equipment or one process that is feeding a bunch of downstream processes that need things in a balanced way, right? And so if you replace that with a person, we need to act on multiple systems in a balanced way for the business to operate. And we've talked about this in terms of like, do some sales every day instead of realizing that you're running out of work and then hit sales really hard, and then you spike the work, and then you have no time to do sales because you're so slammed doing all the work. So I was sort of thinking, what about literally treating it like that, where it's sort of saying like, I do, and I was thinking about this in the context of time boxing. a day of saying I spend the first 2 hours of the day are spent on product development, or the first 30 minutes is 3Sing. The next 2 hours is product development. The next 30 minutes is answering emails, right? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and say I always move through those tasks in that order and with that ratio. And then if one is needed more than I have time for, that is a time to think about it as like a, what can we work on and solve?
Yeah.
Anyway, something I've been toying with.
Yeah. I like that. I think, well, in classic form, issues will highlight quickly.
Yeah, but I think right now they're not highlighting, not because they're not there, but because it's just mayhem dawn to dusk. Right? It's like
for anybody who haven't been to Uriel's shop, there's actually people with swords running around.
Almost all but no, it's just like you wake up in the morning, you're like, wow, I have a ton of things to do, and then the night comes and you've done some of them and not all of them, and you're like, when is this gonna happen? I can stay up late, or I can wake up early, or I can work faster, or and then some, I don't know. I'm sure there's people who are better at this than I am, but it's just my reality.
Well, and I think it's a little bit of scale. I mean, it's like there's that time in a business where you have no money, right? And you're like, well, what do I spend? I need A and I need B. I have enough money for one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to choose.
Right.
Eventually you get to a point where you have money for both.
Yeah.
I think
it's more time constraint. Yeah.
Similar with time.
Right.
Like there will be a time when it's not going to be.
Which you could say time is money. Many people have said that. And we're just understaffed.
Never heard that one.
But that does get back to the bank account of like paying for more people such that all projects have bandwidth.
Yeah.
How many people would that be?
I don't know.
N+1, I bet.
I mean, that is something I'm kind of curious about, because I imagine I want to take my business to a steady state size at some point.
Which probably means you need a mechanism for saying no, or a mechanism for knowing, because otherwise you're just going to keep growing.
Yeah, no, it's hard to figure out what that point is.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. All right, well, here's some improvements. So one of them was just 3Sing, cleaned off my prototyping desk.
Yeah.
There was a lot of trash on it, like literally stuff that I threw right in the trash. Like there's all the support material off of 3D prints, and like just all the stringiness that comes off of them. Yeah. There's a good amount of that on there. Anyway, cleared that off.
Trash cans everywhere is key.
Yeah, I don't have enough of them. I think I just need to buy smaller ones.
Yes, small trash cans.
Oh, that's funny. I 3D printed a bracket that holds a yogurt container, and we have them at the assembly area. I should just 3D print more for around the shop.
It's like a mini trash can?
It's a mini trash can. That's free. It's not free, but you get a bunch of yogurt in it. Let's see. So, yeah, that was mine. Are you imagining buying a different trash can filled with yogurt?
No, it's just kind of the only. I mean, we've been busy resetting up our shop, so it's a little bit just chaos and mayhem as well.
Dawn to dusk.
Yeah, but I did buy some rolling whiteboards, which is cool.
Nice.
Now we have space for stuff, for organizing and writing stuff down. Also, they're double-sided.
Ooh.
Yeah. So now one side of two next to each other is like our whole job queue.
Okay.
So we had an issue before. We had like the organized portion that was like, this is where material's been ordered, this has been programmed, this is blah, 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 blah. And then there was this whole like section that was on the side of a machine that was like incoming jobs. Material has not been ordered.
Gotcha.
But, still arranged by what work center they're going to go
like
across.
You needed more space but didn't have it.
Yes.
Okay. So now you have it.
Now we have two. One side of each, and then side by side is all of that, and then the back sides is now going to become, whipboard and general lists and kind of places where we can kick ideas around and
cool
stuff like that.
How is it? Are you noticing? Like, I think a big win with your shop board versus an ERP system, which you were playing, or you have both, but you manage one, is the idea of like a visual work space where you can see the state of things quickly. Have you noticed it? Well, I guess you haven't been in the new space maybe long enough with all that space out, but like has it fixed things, prevented issues? Like, did you have issues with the other one that was cramped?
More just like organization, not like visibility issues, but organizational issues of literally like, where do we put this job tag?
Gotcha.
We're going to like wrap around the corner of the machine. Now it's in the way of other stuff kind of a thing.
I see.
So no, I did, Quorum transitioned the layout over from our old board.
Mm-hmm.
And he copy and pasted it exactly. And I think we will want to make some tweaks.
Gotcha.
To more accurately reflect the workflow.
Yeah. I think something interesting to me that I'll mention here, is that a lot of the factories that Toyota manages, I know they have a digital back end now, and maybe a digital front end too, but for many, many years, they have not gone. And still, I don't know if, I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn here.
Yeah.
It seems like they still heavily rely on Kanban, whether that's digital or physical. The point is, and if you look at tours of their factory, the data is, there's a huge emphasis on presenting the data and everyone being able to see the data. They still, as of 2015, I want to say, ran a big warehouse, one of their biggest warehouses, off of a whiteboard.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's worth thinking about software. I think we are in an age of like, oh, there's an app that, here's 10 apps that will save you time during your day.
Yeah.
It's not always a win. And I think like having visual information and being able to make changes easily and having it be flexible, I don't know, like working in, like trying to get into Asana or into an ERP, I feel like sometimes you contort the way your business runs to match the way they want to structure data. Yeah. Anyway,
I am noticing that my transition between the two is becoming onerous.
Mm-hmm.
The whole like, well, right now there's like 2 softwares, and then like printing out a bunch of stuff and then marking a bunch of check boxes and stuff, which initially it's still, I think, an improvement over before for the shop flow as a whole.
Okay.
But it's become like a significant drain on my time, and I'm finding myself being like,
I wonder if you could write not you, I wonder if, or maybe you, maybe ChatGPT. I wonder if there's a possibility of writing a script that sort of takes care of a lot of that.
Oh, I have a very clear pathway to deal with it. I just haven't yet. So
why not? No.
Yeah, it's not really a good excuse. It's just because we still haven't transitioned to the new system, and I don't want to do too much refinement in the current system.
That makes sense.
Rebuild it again because I don't know exactly what the new system's going to look like. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
I need a drum roll. No. I installed the Probe Halo on the Probe.
Nice.
That I've owned for at least 6 months.
Yeah. We broke one.
You broke a Probe Halo?
Yeah.
How?
A probe got loaded incorrectly into the tool carousel, and when it went to do a tool change, it just got dropped. Oh. Yeah.
That's a good way.
I think it saved the probe.
Oh.
Not how it was designed to. But
another win for the Probe Halo. Yeah, so I installed it on the Probe. Hasn't come into play. I don't really probe that much. Yeah. But
it's like a seatbelt. It's not supposed to come into play.
Yeah. I just needed a little break. It was like 5 minutes, and I was like, yep, I can just check that off the list. Nice. So that was nice. We do use the probe for production. So I will say, if I was prototyping something and like crushed our probe body, it would slow us down. Yeah. Majorly.
For sure.
And cost us a lot of money. So I forget what they cost, but it's like nothing compared to a probe rebuild. It's a lot for what it is, but so little for what it does. Yeah. Price for value, not cost. Yeah. In doing this new buckle, I decided to try ID clamping. Mm-hmm. So it's not really a diameter, but clamping on the inside of the part rather than squeezing the outside of the part.
Inside dimension.
There you go.
Yeah.
And my reasoning was sort of, I just kind of wanted to try it. It has a few upsides, like the fact that the elements of the buckle are under tension instead of compression, and so they're much more likely to stay straight. Whereas there's an issue of like when your parts get really thin, a lot of our parts are like they're not very stiff in their final configuration, and the parts bow, and then when you run a quarter round around that, it's very sensitive to that bowing. So it's caused issues, and then you turn down the pressure on the vise, and then you throw parts. Anyway, so it's a delicate dance, and the ID clamping kind of fixes a lot of that. It also increases the clearance between our hardened inserts and op2, which is nice because you're on either end of the of the stroke of the jaw, which is kind of nifty.
Interesting.
Anyway, and I just wanted to see if it worked as well as it did in my head, and so far it does. So that was a win. Always a risk of like the whole time I was like, what am I missing? Like, is there an aspect of this that I just am going to realize once I machine the whole thing? So far, no, but I've only made 2 parts on it. So
yeah, interesting.
So that was that. I'm trying to think about the lean principles here. Optimize for learning.
Not really a lean principle, but it is now.
Problems are gems. No. Yeah. Anyway, it's good. It works. I think it'll reduce defects. That's what it's going to do, I think, long term.
Yeah.
So that'll be nice. Here's one. So this is an embarrassing one, sort of. When I was engraving text, and I don't do it frequently, but when I was engraving text, I was using basically type in CAD and then extrude it in, so it was like this pit, and then select all of the edges for the engrave function in Fusion 360. I was clicking through it and I was like, this is so slow. There's got to be a better way. I know you had mentioned centerline engraving. So I tried that, and it's 1 click instead of like 1 to 2 to 3 clicks per letter.
Yeah.
So huge improvement.
On the programming side or the machining side?
On the programming side.
Oh,
also an improvement on the machining side, but it's mostly for our soft jaws to label them, to say what it is. So it's not something I care about the cycle time on. It's just I guess like, stop what you're doing and make an improvement. Fix what bugs you. This was one of those, which was squarely like, it took me 2 minutes to redo it in a new way that then saved me 10 minutes that day. Maybe not 10 minutes, but 5.
And also, I'm not familiar with the engrave toolpath. This is machining weeds, but I actually, at least in HSM, the engraving toolpath often tries to
go up to all the corners.
So I just use a contour with no offset. Just like a 2D contour toolpath with no left or right.
On center
bias. Yeah. And it just follows the line.
You use that on a centerline text, or you use that? Oh, interesting. I'm using like trace or something. I don't know. I'll try contour. Or trace is working. Anyway, saved a lot of time, and it's something that was just really fiddly and annoying. And the worst was when you clicked something that you didn't intend to, but then you weren't sure. You had some, like, it was an opportunity for failure, because like, I don't think I've ever crashed like that, but I've nearly crashed like that, where I selected an edge that was like secretly on the other side of the block. And then
there's also,
because you're clicking a lot of edges.
So
it's slow and you're trying to go fast. And
there's also just the issue of like, when you mess up too, if you don't crash
and you hit escape accidentally.
Oh no, I wasn't even thinking of that, but it's just like when you engrave something to be like all look cool and be slick, and then it looks like crap and you can barely read it, and you're like,
Speaking of which, I did do that. But worse, I selected all of the edges and then somehow flipped the side it removed. So it removed all around the text and just like mangled the top of the soft jaw. It still works, but I'm going to need to replace it to go into production. So anyway, that failure mode also couldn't happen with this new method. By new, I mean new to me. Should have been doing this for a long time. Another takeaway from, I feel like I've heard it a few times now, but anyway, been thinking about digital assets and extending the ideas, the concepts of like lean and Toyota Production System to all of our file management and just my desktop on my computer, and my download folder, and like, do you have clear processes for where things live and when to get rid of files and all that stuff? The answer is no, for me.
Yeah.
Then I was in my conversation with Andrew Henry Holsters. He mentioned an aspect that I really liked, which was adding the website to the 3Sing process. So like little fixes to the website that then, back to our conversation about like core functionality versus just things that are viewed as like extra,
accessory, auxiliary.
Yeah, it's like that is where all of your customers interact with your business. And there's all these things of like, oh, it would help to add an FAQ. It would help to whatever. And it would be so easy to be like, okay, today my improvement is going to be writing an answer to one question or adding one image that people have been asking about.
Yeah.
So I kind of like this idea of like blowing up the, like where all these tools can be applied, and it's really easy. Like we're just applying it to my product development process, which is a core functionality of the business, theoretically.
Yep.
Only time will tell. No, has been, that's what the business is built on. And can also be applied to the web store and to internal file management, and a lot of other things besides. So just wanted to kind of shout that out.
Yeah.
On the business of machining, they were talking about brittleness of 3D prints in Fusion, in Coolant, in Fusion. And I forget if I sent it to them. There was that article Avi sent us.
Oh, yeah. About
environmental embrittlement or something.
Environmental stress cracking.
Environmental stress cracking. And it's interesting because it's not just wear and tear. It's like literally certain solvents with certain polymers get absorbed. Like they're soluble, they get absorbed. The swelling induces stress. The stress orients the polymer chains.
Yep.
And then create cracks that propagate along those now oriented polymer chains.
Yeah, we have been noticing our tool tags starting, the little fingers starting to crack off.
Those are all PLA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so PETG so far has been very good. I just ordered carbon fiber reinforced PETG, which is, instead of like $26 for a kilo, it is $36 for a kilo. So like not a huge
deal.
Difference.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would want to. Well, you could use it for that. It's abrasive, but
not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
It apparently prints nicer and is stiffer.
Huh.
So I'm gonna try that. We've had some issues with flex in some of our fingers for the automation. So we can fix it some in design, but also some with just maybe a better material. So ordered some of that to try. What waste does that fix? Rejects.
Mm-hmm. Well, rework,
rejects, and
downtime.
It also, I think, like I don't know, trying to build learning into the organization instead of just like keeping on banging your head against the same walls.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like we're still in the exploration phase of like, is there a filament that just checks more boxes? Because if there is, we should be buying that instead and not investing all this time printing parts that wear out faster.
Yeah.
So I think there's some of that. So I'm still treating it like I'm trying to get better at, instead of just like, we are rolling out carbon fiber PETG in all of our production stuff. It's like, I bought a spool. This is still an experiment. Only time will tell.
Yeah.
And while we were recording, something showed up at the door, which is finally, very excited about it. We have had the what did we call them, stepsister tooling outside of the machine.
Oh yeah.
Of like pre-set up tools that can just hot swap into the machine if we break a tool, so we don't have downtime because of a broken tool.
Yeah.
Which have been working great. We do not have it for our roughing mill, which has been breaking recently.
The one that always breaks.
Yeah, so pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
And those were just on back order.
Oh,
And so they finally showed up.
nice.
So I'm pretty excited to have those. We just had that issue recently, and it had broken off, like, whatever. It's a shrink fit tool holder, very in the weeds.
Yeah.
It had broken off below the thing, so there was nothing to grab to yank out the old tool. So we had to do all this monkeying around, and
Yeah.
it was not ideal. And the mill was down, and we were working on it for probably, when all was said and done, probably 10 to 15 minutes, which is a bummer considering 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour and you have 8 hours. So, it's a 32nd of your day, which is a bummer. Yeah, so that's exciting. And
Nice.
then a last one here is with all these new sewing fixtures, there was nowhere to put them. So they're always sort of floating around, falling off the back of the table. There just wasn't a place.
Yeah.
So I was watching Sam kind of struggle with that this morning, and we just quickly did a bit of rework on that station. Speaking of optimizing things that aren't a constraint to our business, but still super nice. Like, that is struggle, and I do feel like one thing that is important, adding mental load to a critical function like shipping people what they asked for is not a good idea. And I do feel like keeping track of, like, which one is it, and am I meant to be using, like, then you are thinking about that instead of something else. And so while it is not critical in terms of growing revenue, when we ship something, I've noticed an uptick lately, but I think it's getting better. An uptick in, like, errors in what we've shipped. So then people email us. Then I reply to the email.
Wait, when do you notice an uptick?
I've just recently, since we reworked the whole cell, and so there's less, like, muscle memory or whatever, right? Like relearning how to do the process, and I think there's just whatever. So some lost revenue because we missed shipping someone a part of their order, and they were like, "Hey, just refund me. Don't worry about it." So like, obviously we did.
Yeah.
But that's lost revenue.
Yeah.
It looks unprofessional. Anyway, it's all bad. So that I'm not sure that this will directly contribute, but I suspect it will.
Yeah. I think that makes perfect sense. Like, you've stated that you're not production constrained.
Yeah.
But, like, that is still your key business function. And like, making sure it runs smoothly is important.
And if I'm replying to emails, that is time that I'm not spending on the things we are constrained on. So,
like product development,
for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Cool. Hopefully I will start carrying my weight again here soon.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, you're super
subsides.
busy. It's just that we have a podcast about a very narrow aspect of what we each do in our day. So I would say the concepts apply to a lot of it, but, like, I don't know. Also, I don't know how to think about, like, the fact that you are in a sort of crunch mode with, like, down machines because of a move. Like, I wonder what the right way of doing, like, do you think you could have solved some of that with a little bit more planning, or, like, having
theoretically, but coming back to the, like, time constraint, not really.
No, I wonder if that's true. I mean, not to throw you under the bus. I'm sure I would have / will do the same thing. It's another one of those, like, things that everyone does it the way of kind of, like, a bit of planning and then execution. And it seems like Toyota does things often with, like, 80% planning, 20% execution. That seems really, really hard to get to. Just being real here.
I think if I had, started a year ago and been like, in a year I'm going to move and these are what the steps are going to be.
Right.
Like, that could have been a thing, but at the time this opportunity didn't exist.
I know.
And as someone with limited time, it's hard to plan for something that doesn't exist yet and may not. So I think given the circumstances of, like, basically having 2 months,
right,
I think we did pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah, that does feel like another level to start to be like, all right, the business is going to move. But again, back to the, like, small team thing. Yeah, if you had a big team, I don't know. I vacillate between, like, let myself on the hook, let myself off the hook, right? Huh.
Yeah.
Tough.
I mean, if you have that size team, you probably have a different level of financial ability to make opportunities happen that, like essentially this was an opportunity that came along. I didn't necessarily feel ready, but couldn't pass it up.
Right.
Whereas if I was at a larger scale, I could probably be like, we're going to move in a year and we're going to, start talking with real estate agents now and either landowners or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to make something happen on our timeline versus having to fit within someone else's availability. There's
interesting. I'd be curious to know what took the extra time from what you were anticipating to what just shook out.
What do you mean?
Like, was it sort of tools were not?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just
you mean the extra 3 or 4 days after like having machines powered up?
Yeah.
To actually running?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I think it is fundamentally my short-sightedness on how complex our systems actually are. And the level of disarray that would come from moving everything.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I ran into, hopefully won't, but probably will run into again around product launches where it's like, okay, the product is ready. And then you're like, whoa, I have so many things that need to actually happen to be selling this.
Yeah.
And then it's a bit of a scramble and you don't nail it and it feels preventable, but also sort of like maybe not, just given the realities of the whole business. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard to say. Anyway.
Yeah. You got to catch a ferry, huh?
I do.
We better wrap this up. Thank you all for listening once again.
You can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com.
You can find me at likenprecision.com on the internet and lichen_MFG on Instagram, and the pod at incremental CI.
And we have a Patreon. Go check it out. Thanks for listening.
Talk to you soon.